HOA will take your house, and there is nothing you can do about it.
I had 48 hours to pay up or face foreclosure. I wasn't looking for a miracle, I was looking for a mistake.
Buried on page 42, under a section regarding agricultural easements, was a sentence that changed everything.
Most people would have called a lawyer. I did something better. I followed the law, the old law, to the letter. By the time the board realized what I was doing, it was already too late.
In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how a single paragraph from 1970 turned a $10,000 fine into a total HOA meltdown.
The first thing you need to understand is that my HOA president, Marcus, didn't just want my money. He wanted my absolute, total submission. I moved into Oak Creek Estate for the trees and the quiet, but I quickly realized I had moved into a small-scale dictatorship. Marcus lived 3 houses down, and he spent his retirement patrolling the sidewalks with a literal clipboard and a digital camera. He wasn't looking for safety hazards. He was looking for deviations. It started with the garage door. I had spent 3 weekends sanding and repainting it. I chose a shade called Desert Sand. It was tasteful, expensive, and looked 1,000 times better than the peeling gray paint the previous owner had left behind. 2 days later, a neon orange violation notice was taped, not to my mailbox, but directly onto the fresh paint on my garage door. The tape left a residue. The letter stated that Desert Sand was not on the 2024 approved color palette. I checked the palette. The approved color was Sahara Dust. I held the swatches up to each other. They were identical. I'm not exaggerating. Under sunlight, you could not tell the difference. I called Marcus, thinking a simple conversation would fix it. Marcus, it's the same color. It's just a different brand, I said, trying to stay polite. The brand doesn't matter, Miller, he replied, his voice sounding like he was enjoying the confrontation. The bylaws state you must submit a request form 45 days in advance for any exterior modification. You didn't submit the form. That's a $100 administrative fine, plus $50 a day until it's repainted to Sahara Dust by a licensed contractor. I ignored the first fine, then the second. I thought common sense would eventually prevail, but common sense doesn't live in Oak Creek. By the end of the month, the administrative fees have ballooned. Every time I left for work, I saw Marcus standing at the edge of his driveway, staring at my house, scribbling in his notebook. He started finding me for other things. A trash can left out 2 hours past pickup, a non-conforming flower pot on my porch, and excessive weeds in a lawn that was professionally manicured. By month 3, the total was $4,500. Then came the letter from their law firm. They weren't just asking for the money anymore. They were threatening a lien. In my state, an HOA can actually foreclose on your home to pay off fines, even if you're current on your mortgage. My wife, Sarah, was 7 months pregnant. She was stressed, crying, and begging me to just pay it. But paying it felt like giving a bully your lunch money. I knew if I gave in now, Marcus would own us for the next 20 years. I sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m., looking at a foreclosure threat over a shade of tan paint, and I realized I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my sanity. That night, I went into the attic. I wasn't looking for a legal loophole. I was just looking for the original deed to see if there was any mention of Sahara Dust being the only legal color. I found a blue plastic bin left by the previous owner, Mr. Henderson. He was an old-school civil engineer who had been one of the first people to move into the neighborhood in 1970. The bin was filled with old blueprints, property surveys, and a thick, leather-bound binder titled Original Covenants, Conditions and Restrictions, CC and RS Oak Creek Estates. I started reading, and at first, it was mind-numbingly boring. It talked about the width of the sidewalks and the placement of utility poles. But as I got deeper into the governance section, my engineering brain caught a discrepancy. I noticed that the language used in the 1970 document was far more restrictive regarding the board's power than the current handbook Marcus handed out. Then, on page 42, I found the sunset provision. It was a single paragraph, tucked between snow removal and pet restrictions. It stated, "The authority of the Architectural Control Committee and the Board of Directors shall be granted for a period of 20 years from the date of incorporation. Upon the expiration of this term, all restrictive covenants shall lapse and become null and void unless a recertification deed is signed by 75% of the primary residents and recorded with the county clerk within 6 months of the expiration date. I did the math. The HOA was incorporated in 1970. That meant their authority expired in 1990. I didn't sleep. I spent the rest of the night on the county clerk's digital archives. I searched every filing for Oak Creek Estates from 1989 to 1995. I found dozens of filings for fence permits and deck approvals, but I found absolutely zero recertification deeds. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. If that document didn't exist, it meant the HOA hadn't legally existed as an enforcement body for over 30 years. Every fine they had collected from the 300 families in this neighborhood since 1990 was, legally speaking, a voluntary gift. They had no power to sue, no power to fine, and certainly no power to foreclose. But I knew I couldn't just scream this from the rooftops yet. Marcus had a law firm on retainer. If I just showed him the paper, they'd find some obscure de facto HOA law to protect themselves or quickly scam the neighbors into signing a new agreement. I needed to let Marcus walk all the way to the edge of the cliff before I pushed him off. I needed him to commit a crime that was so public and so egregious that no lawyer could save him. The next morning, I did something that made my wife think I'd had a nervous breakdown. I went to the hardware store and bought the brightest, most fluorescent safety orange paint they had. It was the kind of color they use for traffic cones and hunting vests. I spent the entire afternoon painting my garage door. I didn't even have the first coat finished before Marcus pulled up in his golf cart. He didn't even get out. He just sat there, his face turning a shade of purple that almost matched my new garage. He was shaking. "Miller, stop. Stop right now," he screamed. I didn't stop. I dipped the roller back in the tray and did a long, slow stroke right down the middle. "Afternoon, Marcus. Just decided desert sand wasn't for me. I think this really pops, don't you? This is a violation of the highest order," he yelled, finally jumping out of the cart. "I'm calling the sheriff. I am calling our lawyers. You will be out of this house by the end of the month. I will personally see to it that you are ruined." "I look forward to the meeting, Marcus," I said with a smile. Over the next 3 days, I became the neighborhood pariah and the neighborhood hero. Half the people thought I was insane. The other half, the ones who had been bullied by Marcus for years, started secretly texting me. I told them all the same thing. Show up to the emergency board meeting on Thursday. Bring your checkbooks and every fine you've paid in the last 5 years. You're going to want to see this. I also made 2 very important phone calls. The first was to a friend of mine who worked for a local news troubleshooter segment. I told him I had a story about a multi-million-dollar fraud involving an illegal HOA. The second call was to the district attorney's office to report a fraudulent lien filing. I spent Wednesday night printing out copies of the 1970 CC and RS and the lack of filings from the county clerk. I wasn't just building a defense, I was building a cage. Marcus thought he was the hunter, but he had no idea he was walking into a room full of people he had robbed, with a news camera waiting in the wings. The community center was overflowing. There were people standing in the hallways. The air was thick with tension. Marcus sat at the center of the high table, looking like a judge. He had a gavel. He actually bought himself a gavel. "This meeting of the Oak Creek Estates Board of Directors is called to order," Marcus announced, striking the table. "The sole item on the agenda is the immediate foreclosure proceedings against the property at 114 Maple Street. Mr. Miller, you have 5 minutes to show cause why we shouldn't proceed." I stood up. I didn't bring a lawyer. I just brought my yellow binder. "I don't need 5 minutes," I said, my voice carrying through the silent room. "I just need you to look at page 42 of the 1970 covenants, specifically Section 8. 4, the Sunset Clause." Marcus didn't even open the book. "We discussed this, Miller. The board has the power to update the rules. That document is old news." "The document isn't old news, Marcus. It's the only news," I said, stepping toward the table and laying a stack of papers down. Section 8. 4 required a 75% vote to extend this HOA's authority past 1990. I've spent the last week at the county recorder's office. That vote never happened. That deed was never filed. I turned to the audience. That means this board has been operating illegally for 34 years. Every dues payment you've made, every fine you've paid for your grass being too long, every lien they've placed on your homes, it was all based on a lie. They didn't have the legal right to take a single penny from you. The silence in the room was deafening for about 3 seconds. Then the shouting started. Marcus started banging his gavel, but the head of it flew off and hit the floor. It's a technicality. Marcus yelled, his voice cracking. We provide services. We pave the roads. The city paved the roads, Marcus. I countered. You just collect the checks. And since you've been using threat of foreclosure to collect money under a non-existent legal authority, that's not a technicality. It's extortion. And as of 10 minutes ago, the local news and the DA's office have the full file. The room devolved into absolute chaos. Neighbors were standing on chairs, demanding their money back. The other board members were literally trying to sneak out the back door, but the crowd blocked them. The fallout was nuclear. The HOA didn't just stop fining me. The entire organization evaporated overnight. Marcus tried to fight it, but when a class action lawsuit was filed by 280 homeowners seeking 30 years of back dues, his own lawyers abandoned him. He ended up selling his house to pay his legal fees at a massive loss because nobody wants to buy a house in a neighborhood where the HOA president is the most hated man in the county. My garage door is still safety orange. Every time I see it, I don't see a violation. I see the color of freedom.